Alright, so here we are with side B, and you recall that we trimmed the angles of the roof to match side A, so we've already accomplished that. And our next thing we want to do is to cut our window openings. And you remembered template page 2 that has had the windows openings for the tower sides. It also has the window openings for the left house. And so here for side B, we can see that we have one rectangular opening, and we're going to measure up 3 1/8 from the bottom, and then make a line across, and then 2 1/4 up from there and make a line across. That'll be the height of the rectangular window. And then from left to right, the window is 2 3/4 inches wide, and it's centered, so that would give us a 7/8 inch measurement to each side. And let me just verify that while we're sitting here. So 7/8, and then 2 3/4, and then another 7/8, correct. So that is the rectangular opening taken care of. And then I'm going to have a 2-inch round opening above that, and that is centered left to right. And then it is the bottom of that window is 1 inch from the top of the rectangle. Or if you looking at it on this template, it says that from the top of the rectangular window to the center line, that's what this designation means right here, to the center line is 2 inches. Well, since this is a 2-inch circle, that means that from the bottom here of the 2-inch circle to the top of the rectangle would be 1 inch, half of 2. And then if you're looking at what the center is, because this side is 4 1/2 inches wide, the center line is 2 1/4. I just, because I used my 2-inch heavy die again, what I did was I marked a box for it to go in. And so after I measured up 1 inch here and then 2 inches from there, I found my center line with my centering ruler. And once I had the center point, I measured out 1 inch either side and made a 2-inch square that I could center my round die in. And these sides were sized so that they could easily fit through a die cutting machine. So that are our window openings for side B. And we want to add score tape around all of these openings. And so I will go ahead and do that, and then we'll be back to talk about pattern paper. So I have all of my edges and my window openings prepped with score tape, and I've cut a piece of the pattern paper, and this one is again 11 1/4 inches tall, but this one is 5 9/16 inch wide. That's a 1/16 inch more than 5 1/2. So 5 9/16 inch wide and 11 1/4 inch tall. This is also scored a 1/2 inch on each side. And when I do those, because obviously this is at a 1/16, I score one side and then I flip it around and I score the other at a 1/2. So then I don't have to worry about the little 16ths and where I would be measuring over here. So that's how I do that. Now, the reason that this one is a little bit different is because the tower is going to be fitting into this edge over here, so that when we put this paper on here, the edge of the tower edge, which is this edge over here, that fold is going to be flush up against the edge of the chipboard. It's on this side which when we're looking at it this way is the left, and this way it would be the right. That's the edge that has the little 16th inch before the fold. So that's how that's going to work. So I'll get my paper oriented the same. I don't think it really matters with this paisley, but the side with the point up here, this is the side that is going, the tower comes in here. We flush up this side of that score with that edge when we put it down. So I'm going to get that attached. So when we're looking at it this way, remember it's the side with the little notch. That side gets butted up right against that fold, so this side has a little bit extra here. So I'm going to put that down and trim my windows, and then I'll be back. So I have my pattern paper attached here, and I've also trimmed out my rectangular window. And I think you can see that I've added to the tabs here, I've added score tape on the outside of this one, and that's because the tower comes in here and this will attach to the tower. Now here on the left side, that score tape is on the inside because that will join to another wall of the house. I've also added the tabs to the inside of the roof line just like we did on side A. And I've prepped to add my windows here in a moment. But first I want to finish trimming my round window. And what I'm trying here is I've got a couple of dies. I think off the side here you can see I've got a set of thin circle cutting dies. And what I'm trying to cut here, I've put score tape on the back. And my goal is to have the same width of trim, 1/8 of an inch. So I used a 2-inch circle and a 2 1/4 inch circle, and tried to get them to be spaced about evenly here, and we'll see how successful I was. Take out that, take out that. I should be left with a nice little ring that'll fit right around the edge there. Well, great. So I think what I'll do is I have blackened the edges with my Copic marker on the inside. I think I'll do that again with the white and just let it come over the edge here in the front just a little bit, just in case the 2-inch in this set of dies isn't equal to the 2-inch in the steel rule die. And that way you won't notice it so much if there's any overlap is colored black. So there we go. Now remove the tape backing. Maybe. There we go. Try to get this. Give that a burnish. And now we can put our windows in. This down here goes one of the double windows. And again, I haven't put my black paper on yet because I'm still thinking, you know, am I going to add anything in the windows? So this is where this prepping came in. This is just like when we put the tower windows in, but it's a little bit easier since it's a flat situation. And again, we want to kind of get that all centered. We should see about 1/8 of an inch of the cream, kind of cream and gold kind of trim around the edges, give or take, because you know, it's hard to keep everything exactly on task. And then up here for the circular, I just put a couple of rows of 1/8 inch score tape, which you can easily bend around a 2-inch opening like this. And then just because I cut this out of a square, I just put some little tabs of 1/4 inch tape here in the corners. And then again, we should see about 1/8 of an inch of reveal. It doesn't matter if it sits in there square on the back. Nobody's going to see the inside of this, so. That looks pretty good, I think. I'll give that a burnish. See what I mean? It's not square on the back, but it doesn't matter. And so that is side B prepped and ready to go. So now we're looking at the front piece for the left side of the house. There's no windows or anything in this piece. It does have an entrance roof that gets attached up here at the top, and the front steps come in at the bottom. So we want to do what I call abundant score tape, and I have 1.5 inch wide here. I want to have abundant tape for about the bottom 1.5 inch, and you could just use a couple of strips of 1/2 inch. It doesn't have to be completely covered, but I have this, so I'm going to use it. And then the top 3 inches will have score tape there as well. And then we'll just fill in on the sides here. As soon as I find the end, here it is. So that's the prep for the front of the left side of the house. Now for the pattern paper, we have 2 pieces left over from covering side A and B. This smaller one is going to be just right to use for this side, and this bigger one is going to be just right to use for the back of the house. So make sure you stop and think and use the skinnier one here. I mean, there are 3 sheets of this paper, but it's not necessary to cut into a 3rd sheet at this point unless you run into some kind of issue. So anyway, we'll be working with this smaller sheet. We want to cut this smaller sheet to the height of our side, which is what, 7 3/4? Let me just check that. Yes, 7 3/4. So we'll cut the 7 3/4 high by 3.5 wide. So 7 3/4 high by 3.5 wide. Then we want to score 1/2 inch on the left side only. So this is eventually going to go on like so. And because this again is going to join to our tower, on this tab we will put score tape on the pattern paper side, the outside. And we're not going to attach this yet. We'll just keep these two pieces together. There's one other prep step for the chipboard, and that is to add on the inside top, to add a joining strip. So I'm just going to cut a joining strip here. Add that to the top and give it a burnish. And we'll keep those two pieces together, but we are not going to do, I'm not going to join them at this point. So the last wall left to work on for the left side of the house is the back. And this wall again has a window opening, so we'll refer to template 2, T2 for the left back. And this window opening is 2 3/4 inches wide, which gets centered across the 5.5 inch back. So that means that there's 1 3/8 on the left side and 1 3/8 on the right side. And then we'll again measure 3 1/8 up from the bottom, and the window is 2 1/4 inches tall. So that's what we have here: 3 1/8, 1 3/8, 2 3/4, 1 3/8, and so there is our opening cut. So we'll add some score tape around the opening. Now that we have our chipboard prepped here, we can cut our pattern paper. This paper doesn't have any tabs on the side. It is just cut to the width of the back and the height of the back. So I will do that. So I have my pattern paper cut. I'm going to add some score tape to it, and I'm going to use some 3/8. You could use 3/8 or 1/2 inch. And first I'm going to go down the vertical edges. And then across on the horizontal edges. Now I don't want to remove any of this tape backing at this point. The only place we're going to attach this paper is with at the window, because when this gets on, these edges need to be able to pull back so that the tabs from the other sides can get engaged. So that's what we're going to do here. about a burnish around the windows. You can see we'll still be able to pull this up in order to tuck the tabs in there. So now we'll just do our normal thing. Cut the opening, trim it out on the front, add the window. So that's basically what needs to happen here. So I'll do that and be back to show you the completed product. Here's our completed prepped back panel. The windows have been added and trimmed out. I've also added a joining strip to the top, inside, back, just like we've done for the other sidewall pieces. So now we're ready to work on the lid that covers the treat hatch here, and I've cut a 4 1/4 inch diameter circle for medium weight chipboard. It's listed here on the bottom of page 2. I've also gathered some other things. We'll need some pattern paper for the outside. I'm just going to use black cardstock on the inside. I have a piece of Tyvek that is about 4 inches by 1 1/4 inches. I've just taken my black Copic marker down the center of that. I have the matching magnet for the magnet that we installed on the roof. A hitch fastener, a Tim Holtz hitch fastener, so that we can lift the lid up. And then I think I would like to trim out the cover with a ring of black, just like we've done for the window openings, etc. So I just cut this by making a 4 1/4 inch outside circle and a 4 inch inside circle, just like we've done for the windows, the round window. So let's get started. We don't need this for a few minutes. So the first thing we want to do is to cut part of the top of this off, because we need a way to hinge it. And so I'm going to just cut between a 1/2 inch, no more than 5/8 of an inch, something like that. I'm just going to cut part of this off. Looks like I need a new X-Acto blade, but I think it'll be alright. And then just so it'll go back the same way that I cut it, I put those 2 lines on there. Now our Tyvek, we want the black to go over that spot there, and it can meet tightly. There doesn't need to be any space here. So I'm going to take some score tape. We probably don't need this wide a piece, but we can just trim it on the edges. And I'm going to leave just about probably a 1/16 of an inch or so with no score tape on it. We don't need a gap, but I just don't want any tape to be in that seam. So now I've got that cut. And so what we can do is take this, we're going to put the Tyvek goes on the top, so I'm just going to take off one side of this and line up. I can see the reflection of the tape there, so I can line it up with the edge of the tape. And then we can remove the other side, and we'll just butt that right up against it and Make sure you keep it oriented the same way and try to get it back to being a circle. Now we'll give that a burnish, and we'll trim this off. Okay. So now the lid will hinge up like this. So I'm going to just come in here with my marker and hit these white edges so that they won't show. Okay. Now, because this paper that I'm going to use is directional, I think probably the smartest thing to do would be to either use this top edge or cut something that goes, you know, if you want it to be in a different place, but take that edge and just hold this up, and so then that paper will stay right aligned with our hinge. And yeah, I think I'll cut it right underneath. Right now the top edge of the paper is cutting the word right in half. So I think I'll just trim a little sliver of this off, and then I'm going to use abundant score tape to put this down on the bottom half, and then I'll take this other edge and line it up here, so that we'll have a little crack there in the middle so that there's some flexibility, and we'll get that cover all done. So I'll be back when I've got that taken care of. So I have my cover covered with paper, and I'm just going to take some ink and kind of go around this edge just in case my black ring here doesn't fit very well. And if you don't have a way to make circles like I do over here, you could just ink this and call that a good edge. I mean, that's perfectly fine as well. So now when this circle goes on here, we want to make sure we cut it where it goes on that bend. So what I'm going to do to start with is make a little slit right there. Just kind of work my way around here. Just lightly at first. Now I still have backing on it right now where for the last few inches here. So I have a new blade in here now, and so I should be able to mark that nicely. And then finish bringing that up. Then we may need to trim a smidge off of this. We'll see. We want to make sure that lid will open up nicely. So I'm going to just open it now and put this on when it's kind of in the open position. I think I'll trim just a little smidge off of there. I'll give that a good burnish. And check my edges here. Everything looks good. So there's the front side covered. Well, unfortunately, I forgot to press record when I did the back side here, so let me just talk you through what I did. So I put a magnet down here with the adhesive side up, and then I lined up my lid where I wanted it to be and pressed really hard so that that adhesive on that magnet would stick to the back side of my circle. You can't see it here because I've covered it up with paper. And so then I just carved out a little hole for it and set that magnet in there with a drop of my diamond glaze again. And so I got that magnet in there good. And then I measured up about 7/8 of an inch or so and put another hitch fastener on here so we'd have a way to lift up the lid. And then I covered the inside with black cardstock, but just up to the point where this hinges. So just up to here. And I just used my abundant score tape on there and went around and then trimmed that off. And then to attach the lid to the roof, I let the magnet seek its mate and stay there, and then I put score tape underneath this top section, flipped it up, and then used my ruler when it was flipped up to make sure it was straight, and then just kind of checked on it to make sure it looked straight this way, and then adhered this top part and made sure I gave it a real good burnish. And so now we have the lid cover for our roof ready to go.